to late 1960s are ones I remember with the greatest of fondness. Summer meant walking down to McGregor's drugstore on the Dixie Highway in Bridgeport to check out the latest comic books, the adventures of Batman or Superman, which were my favorites at the time. My allowance was most modest indeed, 75 cents each Friday. I have two older brothers and one older sister, so I was fortunate to get that much with with that kind of competition. The comic books only cost 12 cents at that time, so I usually bought three or four and had plenty left over for a 10-cent Hershey bar, which was larger than those costing close to $3 today. Hard to believe. Exploring around the neighborhood looking for treasures, or I would just hang out with friends like Joe the Drake, John Mertz, and Mark Greger. These were the favorite things I looked forward to in the summertime. And the best thing about summer was the week-long getaway up north in Tawas Lake at Pop's Cottage. I loved that place, even though it was extremely primitive in retrospect. I think that's what I love so much about it. The trip north was usually mid to late June. Mom was busy preparing weeks ahead of time. She packed clothes in boxes and a few suitcases. And Dad took over the task of packing the car. He had it down to an art form, to be sure. There was never a single inch to spare in the trunk of the car. A cooler with iced drinks was in there, and Dad's fishing poles, and oftentimes us kids straddled the overflow that ended up in the back seat. The good old days before seatbelts. There was one thing that scared me on the trip, always did, and that was Dad's habit of uh, taking chances, passing the slow drivers, which he could not tolerate at all. US 23 North had only two lanes and lots of curves with a double yellow line that you weren't supposed to pass on. But he did, and I can still hear Mom saying, "Slow down, Frank, you're gonna get us killed," but he didn't, and we are still all here and healthy, relatively, today. It seemed to take forever to get there, but as we would pull into that old cottage, looked absolutely beautiful to me. As Dad would unlock the door, we were greeted by the rush of musty air with a slight aroma of skunk. Mom would scurry about, opening up all the windows, but me, well, I kind of like that smell. I don't know why, but I still do. When I smell something like that, I'm transported almost instantly back in time for a few precious moments. Well, Dad and Mom had packed with the help of my brother Frank, who was the oldest, and his girlfriend Jean Pop. It was her dad who owned the cottage and allowed us to use it. Us younger kids would take off our shoes and socks and walk over to the beach and wade in. Seems that we never got out of the water with us and two or three blood-sucking leeches pumping that life-giving fluid from our legs. I hated those things. But a match or a bit of salt made very short work of them. And sometimes us kids would bring friends along, and always look forward to that. I remember John Mertz and Joe the Drake, both at different times, came up for the week, and it always seemed very hot that week, and oftentimes there would be early morning thunderstorms. Now, us kids would walk to a little cement block store, and it didn't carry a whole lot, just the essentials that vacationers would need. And it had comic books, which was most important to me, but they were older issues and not what I would normally buy, but they were only 5 cents a piece. And each I could take on, 5 cents each, and I could take a chance on whether or not I was going to like them at that price. And I really got to like the Green Hornet and the Blue Beetle. I didn't see them downstate where I lived, but they had them there probably because they were a little bit older books. Then we would grab a cold soda pop in glass bottle, of course, and begin our way back to Pop's cottage. The cottage had no running water. Washing up was a chore, which seemed like a punishment that you should have to, it was a chore. Because in the kitchen was a sink with a hand pump, and the water had one temperature. It was always very cold. And it seemed cruel to have to hand pump your water to wash up with, and it was bitter cold, as I said. So, but with no running water, there was no inside bathroom, and we used an outhouse behind the cottage. There was a lot of reading material for the long sitting sessions. There were comic books, but they were all romances, and I didn't think much of those at the time. And I never lingered too long, as there were always lots of bees in there. The only ones who ventured out back during the night were the adults. For the rest of us, there were chamber pots under the beds. For those of you who don't know what a chamber pot is, it's where you did your business late at night, and before plumbing was, common in the houses and cottages. But anyways, for the rest of us, there were chamber pots, as I just said, under the beds, and us boys had it easier, as we could just hang it off the porch and take a pee there in the dark, which happened many, many times. At night and occasionally in the daytime, it would rain, and for those times we had board games. There was no television, and radio reception was spotty at best. The adults had rousing games of euchre that they would play when the weather wouldn't permit them being out on the lake. And I always felt special when I was allowed to cover for someone who had to leave the table for one reason or another, and I got pretty damn good at euchre, I have to say. Sometimes we would go pick wild blueberries, and they were small but luscious. Oh man, they're so sweet and good. And I think I ate a lot of them as I picked them instead of putting them in the basket that I had. Mom made a blueberry pie that easily would put to shame any Amish baker. And if you know the Amish bakers, they are good. There's more, much, much more that I'd like to share with you, perhaps another time. I don't like to make the videos be too long, but I love you all on the other side of that monitor, and thanks for joining me. And I want to say a special hello to Joe LeDrig, because I know he's out there and we communicate once in a while. It's really cool to be able to do that after all the years that we hadn't, talked from the time I moved from Bridgeport in 1971 up until I got on Facebook or YouTube. So it's good to have Joe in the audience. John has since passed, but anyways, see you again real soon. Much love to all. God bless you.